to stand with the people.
The champ is here.
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man. I shook up the world.
Yes, welcome. You could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man,
MH.
Yes, he is the DB of the show, and we are Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shove and dribble. Here interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom, and here we're laughing at it all, covering it all while providing a platform to be heard. So without further ado, we have to welcome in our guest. We're very thankful and happy to have him in. All right, so he's made in Detroit, right? But he's been putting his stamp, all right, all around the world. That's domestically and international. Now, he's a student of the game as well as a student in the business of the game. So West Virginia Basketball Hall of Famer, you know what I mean? So let's go ahead and raise the banners. And he's all about scoring points and holding records. So hopefully, man, he can share some points of view around basketball and business with us. Please clap it up and thank. All right, got a longer title here. So VP of Team Marketing, Business Operation for the National Basketball Association. Please clap it up for Mike Taylor, man. Thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. I need to take you on the road with me.
Hey, let's do it. So, hey, Mike, how we like to start our show and always start our shows with a shoot your shot moment. And this is kind of where, you know, you could have learned the lesson, man. You just shot your shot, got the bag, shot your shot, and got that woman of your dreams, shot your shot, you know, and learned the lesson, man. But anytime in life, man, high school, when you were putting up those points or just something in your recent memory, but do you have a shoot your shot moment where you learned the lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the beginning of my career was a shoot your shot moment. So after college, I got a chance to play professional basketball in Europe for a few years. And after 3 years, I kind of figured I wanted to kind of learn what I wanted to do next. But I became friends with some people that played on the team that I was playing for, that worked for the team I was playing for. And that was my first exposure to the business of sports. And that's when I figured out that's what I wanted to do next. But at the time, I didn't have any connections, no experience, no internships. So I went to a little website called Google and looked up every NBA team's staff directory. And I found every email address for someone I thought was important enough to hire me that I could find. So I probably sent over 250 emails to random people, just telling them my story, how I wanted to, you know, get in the business. I would sweep the floors, whatever it took to get a foot in the door. And so of those 250 emails, one person responded. But the guy that responded was a guy by the name of Steve Kerr, who you might have heard of. And Steve, current coach of the Golden State Warriors, at the time, Steve was the GM of the Phoenix Suns. And it was his first week on the job. You know, I still think to this day, he only responded because I was the first ever email he had gotten at this new job he had just took. But Steve was a fantastic guy. He hopped on the phone with me, gave me a ton of insight, answered all my crazy questions. But then most importantly, he connected me to some buddies of his that worked for the Chicago Bulls. And that led to my first, you know, career opportunity as an intern with the Chicago Bulls. So, you know, shooting your shot, you know, I tell people you got to be persistent. You can't let failure stop your enthusiasm to keep going.
Shout out to you with the emails. I mean, I know back then it had to be hard to track down some of those emails. You have a research team?
It's a grind, man. It's a straight grind.
So, Mike, where did your love for sports start?
Yeah, I grew up in Detroit, like EJ mentioned. And I think just, you know, it started with probably the Bad Boy Pistons, Isaiah Thomas, you know, watching him. And then, you know, the neighborhood I grew up in, it's just kind of, we played all sports, right? We played, you know, football in the street. There was a rec center at the corner of my street. So, you know, we played basketball, volleyball, all the things. And basketball was just something that my friends and I, we just, you know, it was a great connection for us. And once I started to see myself get better, you know, it just kind of was love at first sight.
Now with that, man, just kind of growing up in Detroit, man, you really stamped Detroit. You know, I see it, you know, not forgetting where you come from and all of that good stuff. Mm-hmm. When did the Detroit versus everybody come up? Did you guys, is that something that's innate, or is it just something that growing up, you know, going to MLK High School, like what does Detroit versus everybody come from and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I think people from Detroit are a little bit protective of the city, right? And I think outside of the city, sometimes it gets a bad rap. And people who may have never been or heard things about it, there's myths about it that just kind of spread. And so I think people from Detroit take pride in defending it, and being super loyal to it. And it's something that just screws. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone else says about our city. Like, we love it. Whenever you see somebody, anywhere, and you realize they're from Detroit, there's like an immediate bond, right? And we tend to connect. So I think it's just innate, just wanting to defend the pride of the city, because you love it so much.
That's funny because we're filming this during playoff time, and I feel like my love for, or not love for the Pistons, but my respect for the Pistons started obviously with Isaiah Thomas in those years, and then continue with Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace and all those type of things, and then even how their participants are playing now. They all have a similar identity.
Yeah.
And you think that just comes from just the time in the city, or is that just kind of, you think, how it's built?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's one of the few teams where, the professional sports team, their style of play kind of takes on the personality of the city itself, right? So even back, you mentioned the Bad Boys, right? Like this, like tough kind of grit and grind, like that's kind of been consistent through, generations of Piston teams, right? Then you go into the Ben Wallace, they were called the Going to Work Pistons, kind of that same hard hat, Detroit, home of the big three automotive companies, a lot of people working on the assembly line, right? Kind of that put your hard hat on and go to work, no excuses. So we kind of take that. And then I think this new iteration, kind of feels that same, kind of come from the bottom. 2 years ago, they set a record for the most losses, right? And so to see them build it up, I think it kind of resembles the city that kind of bounced back from some tough times, and now the city's on the rise. If you see downtown, there's so much new businesses, there's so many people moving back. So it's kind of parallel, like the style of play with the team to the personality of the city itself.
Now the guards have always been legit now, from you to Thomas to Billups to Cade. Is that's just what it starts with the guard play in Detroit? That's how it has to happen?
Yeah, it's funny. It seems like that. We've been lucky, man. We've been lucky to get some stellar guards, man. Some we drafted, some, we traded for. But I think Isaiah kind of set the tone. Like that legacy of Isaiah, it still resonates through everyone that puts on that uniform, right? And you see the jersey hanging from the rafters. Like, you have to remember, what he stood for, and you have to kind of embody it. So I think it probably puts pressure on every point guard that comes through now. It's like, man, this is where Isaiah played,
Absolutely. So, definitely young. Like you said, you all played sports, every sport, just growing up. But let's get back into high school, man. Martin Luther King High School. And it's just the talent. When you look at, like, the notable alumni, like, just from a sports perspective. And, when you see George Gervin on the alumni, the Iceman, like, that's something to be with. So how was it, man, kind of like, figuring out your game or just playing it, like, not a high school like that?
Yeah, it's great. King is one of the best schools in the city, and it's also, a really strong academic school. So for me, I grew up in a different neighborhood and a school. I wanted to go to the neighborhood school because that's where my friends were going. But my parents were like, no, you're going to this school that has good academics and, and good sports. So it was the best decision. But yeah, man, it's funny. George Gervin, he's a legend where I'm from, man. And I remember when my freshman year, I was wearing the number 3, and I remember getting the word that, like, hey, you can't wear this anymore. We're retiring this number, for the Iceman. And it's like, I was a little sad because that was always like my favorite number. But I respected it, and I got a chance to meet him and get to know him a little bit. And he was an incredible person and someone that really represents the city well. And so, yeah, then over the years, man, our team, we just grew together and really started to develop and grow. And in the city, people say, like, if you win a city championship in Detroit, it's like winning a world championship. That's kind of how you feel, like you're just king of the city. So my junior year, we won the championship in the city. And that was a huge moment. And for me, I just got better. I was, I probably was I would say a role player. but like play my part, hit open shots, play great defense, and just wanted to win. When I went to college, I became more of like a go-to guy. But in high school, man, I was just happy to win and do whatever I could, and just hang out with my friends.
That's the thing, man. So the game evolved. So you mentioned, going to college. Just two quick things. How did you end up in West Virginia? And it's an HBCU, right? So those are two things that you think about when you're going through that the recruitment process, right? So those are two big things, right? One, leaving Detroit, Michigan to get to West Virginia, right? And then two, being a historically Black university.
Yeah. So my senior year, one of the coaches I think just came across some video from one of our games and reached out, and I took a visit down and just really felt like it was a place. It was far enough away from home. It was about an 8-hour drive from home, so close enough that if people I could get back home if I got too homesick, but far enough that I was away from my parents and could have some freedom, right? So and then I just had a really good connection with the coach, and he was someone that like really believed in me and saw more in me than what I was doing in the high school on our high school team, and really thought that like I could be a featured guy and like a go-to guy on his team. And so, once he kind of showed me what he had planned for me, and it was a no-brainer.
We'll get to the Hall of Fame career, but I want to pause here. Commencement speech, man. You all prepared? 2026?
It's coming up.
Yeah.
What about it this weekend? A
couple days away, man. We're Saturday. Saturday is a big day. If you guys got any tips for me, I'm open to them all, man. But yeah, I think I'm ready.
I love it. That is awesome, and congratulations for it. I know that's a huge honor.
I appreciate it.
Huge honor. So, man, you're a Hall of Famer, All-American. Like, how do you stay so humble? I mean, come on, like. I'm surprised you don't got the jersey in the back. I mean, I know I would. I would have.
It's funny, man. I've come a long way. I wasn't always humble. I would say the other thing coming from Detroit is we talk a lot of trash when we play. So it's funny. I come across people that maybe knew me back in the day, and I was a little bit more of a wild card than I am today. So you know what I mean? A lot of trash talks, a lot of almost fights and scuffles. But yeah, I've grown up a bit.
I love that. So, I mean, you said fights and scuffles, man. We be remiss, when you talk about what people hear and think about Detroit. And there was a famous event that happened 2004 in the Palace of Auburn Hills. Let's get that. That was a magical place, man. But what do you remember? Were you at the game? Like, what do you remember about the Malice in the Palace, man?
Man, I wasn't at the game. I was actually I was playing overseas at the time, but my parents were at the game actually, and I didn't know it at the time. I just remember seeing it on the sports network and just seeing the clips of it and just couldn't believe it. It felt like surreal, like some sort of movie. Like you just never seen anything like that. It's still, even watching it today, it still doesn't seem real. Like I can't imagine a player just going in the stands. I can't imagine fans coming on the court trying to square up with players. Like it just was just a crazy event.
It's definitely a crazy event. It's got documentaries, 30 untold.
I would say it's the legacy of it has lived on. I would say in our security protocols, a lot of things are much different now based on that day. There was a lot of lessons learned, and you see it if you ever watch a game now. It's a much more staffed courtside than it was back then.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those like where were you when this happened moments kind of things. Yeah, it definitely is. But I want to get back to a little bit of your playing career. I know a lot of people win conference championships in college. So tell me about that. Tell me about the team and your role, obviously leading the team to a conference championship. What was that experience like?
I would say that from my senior year of high school to my senior year of college, the leap that I made, I would say it's, probably the biggest you can imagine. Like I just really grew as a player, grew as a leader. We had a great team. It took some years of just kind of building it. The team wasn't known for winning before I got there. My coach, he was new. We were kind of new together, and I was one of his first recruits. So we kind of were like, we're gonna build this together. And so over the course of the 4 years, it took some losses along the way, some rough seasons. But my senior year, man, we had a really good team that was like a great mix of like veterans plus some young kids that came in and were hungry. And then for me, man, I just got to a point where just like the ultimate confidence mixed with the ultimate green light from the coach just led to, a lot of points. And the good thing is the points weren't like, I see a lot of people score a lot of points and they're meaningless and the team doesn't win. Like it was all in the effort of winning. It wasn't a lot of like, we're up 30 and I'm just putting padding stats, or we're down 30 and I'm just trying to get buckets. It was like, these buckets are what's helping us win.
And a big thing that I definitely want to point out, Aris, when you started, the belief in your coach, right? Like, I mean, the coach having that saying, "Low, like this is where we see you," and understanding your role and what you can contribute, man. I like that means a lot. When you're talking about, the confidence of taking the next step, and then that ultimate green light doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, man. It's when you don't have to like look to the bench if you miss, you have some freedom to try some things, take some shots from from the logo a bit. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm very grateful to have played for him.
And I know we'll probably go back and forth a little bit, but just kind of going from college and then going into your playing days, right? Yeah. So you played, played professional and played overseas. What was kind of like your favorite city or team that you played on, right? Because, you talked about college, how like you guys grew something, right?
Yeah.
When you go to some place and there's maybe a little bit of losing or not a tradition of winning, and to be able to establish that, that just gives you a pride, a sense of passion. What was that for your professional career? What team or city or
yeah, my favorite city was Amsterdam. It was one of the first places I went out of college. It was my first kind of experience as a pro, and it was such just a learning lesson. You go from college where you're hanging out, like after games, you're going to a party, you're going, you're doing all the things. And then you go to like a pro team with like grown men with like kids and like, they're going home, to their family after the games. And, so it just was, and they're playing for like to put food on the table for their family. And you're just kind of like hanging out in a new country and just hooping. Right. So it really like made me grow up and made me kind of learn quickly what it means to be a pro. And then just all the things like taking care of your body. I was one that was just throw my shoes on and let's go out there. I never was like a stretch or ice after games. Right. So I learned just all of the maintenance that it takes to make sure you're taking care of your body. Cause that's, how you're being paid and treating it like that. So it really taught me just all of the things, the stretching, the nutrition, the getting sleep, and just how that impacts the way you play. And then as a city, it was a great place to start because everyone understood English. So I didn't have any trouble understanding the coach or my teammates. I could order food, it's an international city. So they have, a lot of Americanized things. So it was just kind of perfect. I had friends that went to places that were like, they couldn't understand the coach. The food was crazy. So I felt really lucky to be somewhere where, it wasn't that much of a language barrier. I taught myself how to drive a stick. They give you this car and it's like a stick shift and it's just like, have at it. So late at night, I would go out every night on this empty street and just like mess up. Like I completely destroyed this transmission of this car, but by the end of it, like I knew how to drive a stick.
I'm sure. Now, was the steering wheel on the left side still? Was on the other side? Yeah.
It was on the normal side that they were used to in Amsterdam.
I got you. And it's funny. I mean, with what you do now, I know we'll get into that. But did you see? I know the Dream Team gets credited for this a lot, but the growth of the game and how international the game is. Did you kind of see that experiencing in that playing? Did you kind of see that coming?
You definitely could. I mean, obviously, like soccer was king, right? You kind of can feel that. But you can feel just like basketball being one of the fastest growing sports because kids would love it. A lot of the older people would be huge soccer fans, but a lot of the school kids, like they were really into basketball. And you could see it growing. People loved at the time, Kobe was the main attraction internationally. So you would see just so many Kobe jerseys, Iverson, LeBron, you would see all of this in internationally as well. So you started to see it really grow. And now it's just, amazing what it's become now.
That's awesome. So last question before because we want to jump into the career.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you took? So you talked about becoming a pro and learning the things to do, like the sleep, the conditioning and all the things for your physical, for your body. Was there anything you learned mentally that you took on into your business career? Because you knew like, okay, this is, where I want to go. This is the next step for me. Was there anything that you took away from any of your experiences, even in college, but definitely in the pros that helped you in your transition to the business side of sports?
Yeah, I mean, probably just the work ethic, right? I really learned, I wasn't one that was, a super high recruit. I never was one that was like connected to the big AAU programs. A lot of my success just came from just like showing and improving, right? And really like getting better, really understanding, where I can improve and putting in a ton of work to get there. And so that's something that, going into the career part of it was like, man, I can bring that same work ethic. I'm just going to outwork people. And hopefully success comes with it. That's kind of been the mindset from the beginning. And that comes from playing sports. Like I do feel like you often see like people who are like student athletes that have a certain competitive spirit that helps them in the business side as well. So that's something that's really helped me for sure.
Absolutely. So want to jump into this is what we call in the game. This is where we talk about your career and we get into some of those things. And I mean, your shoot your shot moment was definitely, if it wasn't your shoot your shot moment, it was definitely going to be the first question, man. Sitting there with 200 some emails.
Yeah.
And Steve Kerr, help you get the job with the Bulls.
Yeah.
As that being your first job, like what was kind of like the spirit then? Because this past the MJ days, right?
Yeah.
But there was the new great hype, right? You guys had that first round draft pick.
Yeah.
So Derrick Rose came in and it was like a resurgence, right? Like people were really excited about a hometown kid coming back. What was some of the experience during that first gig?
Yeah, so my first year there was Derrick's his rookie season, and so there was this incredible hype around the hometown hero kind of coming back to revitalize the Bulls, and it was an exciting time, man. Like the business for the Bulls was kind of sleepy at the time. They had a bunch of losing seasons. There was a lot of people that just kind of lost interest, and they needed something to just kind of shake things up. And Derrick kind of brought that excitement right away. So for me, as someone, I went into sales as my first, job. I was a ticket seller. And when I moved to Chicago, didn't know anyone there, didn't know anything about sales. But I told myself, I'm just going to take the training they give us and just outwork people and see if I have success. And it's really how I fell in love with the business. I just became really curious around the business of like why people buy tickets over something else, or why buy Bulls tickets over this concert or Bears tickets, or, why do we put billboards in this area over here? So I just became really curious about the business. And so that internship really kind of opened my eyes of like, this is what I want to do as a career. And it was hard, selling tickets for a team that was struggling wasn't easy. Chicago's a tough city too. People will let you know, like, don't ever call me again. They'll hang up on you. Which I appreciate. But at the time, it took some learning of just like the process, and you'll be calling these like business people, and you're like a young kid fresh out of school. It's like, you're not sure what's going on there. So it took a lot of adversity, a lot of just like, having some bad days, but just overcoming it. And not losing focus, like asking a ton of questions to help myself get better. But then over time, like similar to just when I was a player, you start to see yourself like getting better. You start to see yourself kind of getting a little bit better every day, or something that used to be a weakness becoming a little bit more of a strength. And then you start to get a little bit more confidence. And so that's how it started to build. And then I would start to have success, and it would just start to build on each other. So that it was a really cool year. One, to like see Derrick kind of take this team and make it cool again. But for me to just be at the ground level of an NBA team and see how they fill the building, how they sell tickets, how they go to market. It was just a great kind of learning environment for me to really get a crash course in the business of the NBA.
And seeing how winning helps, right? Because making it to the playoffs.
Oh, man. We always everybody's smarter when your team's winning. The food tastes better. It's crazy how that works.
Now, was there ever like a pinch yourself kind of moment as someone that grew up in Detroit and obviously the rivalry with the Bulls and Michael Jordan and all that, and then your first NBA gig, you land with the Bulls, especially at the fan level, really speaking to the fan and the heartbeat of the city. Was there ever a pinch yourself kind of moment there?
I mean, the pinch me moment is even like your first day of work when you're walking to the arena and there's this statue of Michael Jordan that you walk past. And it's like, man, like who would have thought, I think one of my first NBA games ever, I think was my dad taking me to see the Pistons play the Bulls, one of Michael's last games. So, that made it like a real moment. Like, man, like I really like made it. Like I'm in this building, in this arena. And there's been a ton of pitch me moments that has persisted throughout. I still get those moments of like, man, I can't believe they paid me to do this.
No, that's amazing. So, a lot of things, right? Like it's so funny. Like we are so busy in living life and being the best person we can be in life. But we look back on some monumental things. So one of the things in your work career is you were working during the lockout. And I think it was like a transition point where you were with the Hawks and just about to go to Detroit So what happened around the lockout? What did that mean to you? Because I wanted to know the time period. Because I think the lockout was in 2011. And I think maybe you were leaving the Hawks at that time or already knew that you were going to Detroit, which is like, I'm coming home. And they out, so like, what was that time frame for you, or what did you experience during that?
Yeah, I think I started with the Pistons at the beginning of October, and the season was supposed to start later that month. And I can't remember how long it was a lockout. It felt like forever, right? You just like, but I remember, especially as like I was a ticket salesperson, and so that's like your livelihood, right? If there's no games, there's nothing to do, right? And so when there's a lockout, like you have to like take down any like images of players. You can't talk about them, you can't speak to anything, right? So fans, they're getting all of this information and they're calling you to like confirm things, and you can't talk about it. PR has the bullet points for you here. This is the only thing you can say. So it was a tough time. And then we didn't know how long it would go. There was no, inside information on like, this is only going to last for a month. Like the whole season could have been gone, and you didn't know what that meant for your job. So I remember just as people in the ticket sales group, we started trying to think of like, what are some other things that we can do to like make revenue? Like how else can we use the building? So like to the point of like, man, maybe we host like weddings here. Like maybe we should like start trying to find like, different conventions that want to come here. Like we were just like, what are the different things that we can use this arena to like drive people to buy something from us? Luckily, before we had to like execute some of those plans, the season started again. And then it was a sprint, but yeah, it was tough, man. It was definitely, not something that you think you would ever like have to go through, and you don't really understand it. But yeah, it was a challenge for real, especially to like come home and be excited to work for your hometown team. And then, then you're figuring out, man, how do you sell weddings to people?
Absolutely. So, and we'll probably jump back and forth, but just want to get to it now. So talk to us about, and I know no day is the same in your role, but in your current role, talk to us about some of the layers that you kind of focus on, right? What is the ultimate goal, for you as being, the VP of marketing, but team operations? Like, what are those two things? Was that a role created or developed after time? Just kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So my department is called Team Marketing and Business Operations. It has a nickname in the industry called Teambo. And it was created years ago by former Commissioner David Stern. And his vision for the department was, our teams compete on the court, but they don't need to compete off the court. So he wanted to create kind of a bridge that connected our teams, right? So if there's something great happening with the Lakers, how can we share that with the Wizards, right? If there's a deal that happens with the Heat, how can we get those details to the Blazers, right? So the beginning of our department started with that. It's just kind of this bridge to connect our teams, share best practices, share resources, provide them with the tools they need, if they're going through something, kind of give them information that, a similar team went through something similar. So that was kind of the vision that David Stern had for our department. And so it's kind of grown since then. So we support, across the entire business. Our department's kind of similar setup to how teams are. We have, our ticketing experts that support the ticketing functions at our teams. Same for partnerships, same for marketing, same for analytics. And then my role, it's more of like an account manager, and I work with all of our team presidents to support across the entire business. So know a little bit about everything going on within the business, and then find ways to help, depending on what's going on. I would say probably the easiest comparison would be like your primary physician. Like when you go to the doctor, right, you have like your primary physician that knows a little bit about everything, right? But if you break your knee, you're going to like a knee specialist, right? So that's kind of my role, is to know enough about everything to be dangerous. But then also, if there's something really going on within ticketing, bring in some folks that can help us dive in on that area, help us dive in on the marketing area, and then just kind of be a strategic kind of thought partner with our team presidents and our senior leaders, to just kind of give them insights, give them, here's what maybe you can think about doing differently if they're struggling. Here's how we can capitalize on this moment that we're in if they're doing really well. So really just serve as like a resource and try to find ways to add value to all of our teams.
What's really interesting about the NBA is, Oklahoma City's a market, so is Chicago, so is, New York. And I think there's probably, different things that happen at each market, but how do you kind of help with the, uniqueness of each market, kind of simulate, best practices? Some things may not work in Oklahoma City that work in New York, and vice versa. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's a great question. And it's probably one of the harder parts of the job, is to you have to kind of fully ingrain yourself in the markets to understand just the nuance and the context of them, right? It's one thing for me to sit in New York and look at some reports and say, oh, this team's not doing well in this area, right? But until you that's why I spend a lot of time visiting teams, going into market, kind of talking to a lot of the people there, just to get a sense of what are they facing, what are they dealing with, what's the market saying. One of my favorite things to do is when I land in the city, and I take a cab or take an Uber, the drivers always give you a feel for how they feel about the team. They're always like, man, we need to trade this player. Man, I wish we would do this, right? So you just get a quick snapshot of how the market feels. And so for me, that kind of helps me a bit. But then I ask a ton of questions. I try to dive in with teams to really understand their challenges. And you're right. We try to give them a very customized support, because, something that works in Atlanta might not work in Utah, right? The problems that are happening in Miami will be very different than what's going on in Toronto, right? So we try to really be kind of laser focused on understanding the market and then giving them specific things kind of tailored to what they're going through.
Now with that, well, first of all, your frequent flyer miles and hotel loyalty points is up there, boy. I mean, all these teams here. How does that work, right? Is it a push or a pull? Meaning, are you having NBA summits and teams can decide hey, we're doing something on partnerships or on ticketing or fan engagement, new thing that we're doing from a platform from an NBA level, you can send your people, or is it requesting, or is it a hybrid?
Yeah, so our support, it's kind of a comprehensive support, right? So different points throughout the year, we will host conferences where we'll bring all of our leaders together across, sales, marketing, partnerships. We also host a lot of calls with leaders just on a monthly basis, just to share updates, to check in. I mentioned the in-market visits, so spending time with them in market. So we try to have a variety of different ways. We also have kind of an internal portal that they can go into to find resources that they need. We have kind of a bunch of things that they can just kind of pull off the shelf and plug and play. But then to your point around push pull, I would say probably the most important part of my gig is just relationship building, right? Building trust with people, so that when I have an idea, when I have a suggestion, They don't just see it as like, oh, here's the like league in the ivory tower trying to tell me how to do my job. But they see it as like, oh, Mike's wanting to help. He's coming from a place of help. He knows what we're going through. He knows the challenges. He's worked on the team side. He's sat in the seat before. So I try to like come from a place of like, how can I help? And not so much like I know everything, I have all the answers. It's like, no, I have a unique view that I've seen a lot of different things, and there's not a lot of new things that are going to happen in our business that some team hasn't already went through. So we try to just like, you know, the more that we can like, I say we don't like control things, but we influence it, right? We don't, you know, a team can say, you know what, we aren't listening to you at all, Mike. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that, right? So our job is in how well we can build trust to drive influence.
Speaking of drive, you know, my professional job, I'm in the development side of kind of the coin. And I really, from your perspective, how do you think, I guess, growing participation in any sport? I mean, you mentioned it earlier with LeBron James and Kobe jersey with the youth.
Yeah.
How do you see that converting to actual, you know, kind of revenue, particularly on the club side? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where you see a lot of our teams really investing in their youth strategy. So everything from, you know, their camps and clinics that they do. A lot of teams are hosting their own leagues. A lot of teams are doing, you know, kids clubs, right? You know, I think growing participation has a direct correlation to fandom. Like there's a lot of research that shows, you know, if a kid plays a sport by a certain age, they become a fan for life. And then you can put whatever, you know, that lifetime value you can start to add, you know, and then that doesn't even factor into like the parents and all the things you can do, right? So I think we see a direct correlation to the more times, the more we can get kids playing, the more we can get them participating, the more that will drive fandom. But we also realize that participating might look different for certain people, right? So that's why you see us in our partnership with 2K, right? So maybe you don't like to play yourself, but you're big into gaming, right? And that's your entry into the ecosystem. And we see that a lot, you know. There's, you know, hundreds of millions of people that love gaming, right? So that's a big part of it for us. And so the other part I would say is retail, right? So maybe, you know, you become a fan because you get a jersey or you get a t-shirt, right? And then it's like, you know what, I got this cool jersey. I want to go to a game, right? And so that's your intro. So we realize that everybody won't enter from the same place, but we want to like figure out different ways to get people into the ecosystem and then nurture them from there, whichever direction they want to go.
No, that's growing the game, right? Like that's the ultimate thing, right? And through the fans. When you get into cities, like are some of the complaints, do you hear the streaming thing going, right? Because you're talking about streaming is absolutely opening up a wider range of people because like how people are consuming sports now, right? Mm-hmm. And you bring in the social thing. But has that become a thing where it's become a little bit of an issue? Because like me and MH joke sometimes like, and we need a spreadsheet or an app or something to figure out where the game's at and where it's being played.
Yeah, I have an easy solution for you guys. You just need the NBA app. And then, but no, it's a great question. It's something that we thought about a lot. You know, once we brought on our new partners this year, obviously Amazon's a new NBC and Peacock, right? And then the incumbent ESPN and ABC. We knew it, plus the local markets as well, right? So we knew that for some fans, it would be a challenge to know like where to find games. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible. And so we adopted this kind of front door strategy where within our app, and you look at the schedule page on our website, on our app, within our social platforms, you can click right into the game. Whatever platform is having that game, you can click right into it, right? Now you have to have an account with it, right? But if you don't, you'll have to sign up. But we wanted to make it simple. And I think we've done that. I think we've been, you know, pleasantly surprised that it hasn't been kind of the confusion that we thought this year. When you look at the ratings, when you look at the reach that we've been able to have, you know, I think people have caught on pretty quick.
No, that's great information to share, right? Just even know that's the tool that we should use. Because I'm telling you, and while MH giggles, but I mean, for real, that's great information to share.
I will say that I feel a lot more educated about just because of different personalities that are now talking the game from a national standpoint. It's not just the same TNT crew or the same ESPN crew.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a big Melo fan, so seeing him in this part of his career is like really cool.
Yeah.
see him on NBC and the Prime, and seeing Blake Griffin and Steve Nash kind of talk, and they go through the flow. I feel like I've learned at least a lot more terminology when it comes to just the game.
I love that you say that, because that was our goal for the season. The theme for the season was celebrate and educate. We wanted to celebrate the game and educate fans on the game. We feel like, we've gotten into such I don't want to call out any one particular person or brand, but we've become a very hot take environment, right? And even, if you look at just some of the TV people, everything's debate, everything's, you're on this side or that side, right? And so we felt like that the commentary around our game was going a bit more into a negative zone. And so we felt like this year was a chance to kind of reset and kind of celebrate the game more and also educate more. So you see a lot of our partners, doing more of that. Here's how they scored. Here's how they defended that play, right? Here's what they were doing, instead of just they didn't want it hard enough, that's why they lost, you know what I mean? Or just simplifying it, but really kind of giving more deep dive. And you mentioned Carmelo, having more of these players that were not too far removed from playing, right? That people remember and relate to. As much as I love, some of the older guys, the kids remember Melo, they remember T-Mac, right? So when they hear them speak, it does carry a bit more weight to some of them.
That's awesome. So we're going to switch it up a little bit, man. We're going to go into the sudden change.
Yeah.
MH, ready to hit him with the sudden change?
Yes, sir. Mike, these are just a few random questions, kind of yes or no type things that so our listeners can get to know you a little better. Texting or talking on the phone?
Oh, man. Neither. No, I would say probably
emails.
probably text. But I will say this. Sorry, you probably want these to be quick. I have made more of a point to call people, just to I feel like I work so much and I don't want to get to a point where I'm not investing in my family or friendships and things like that. So I have made more of a point of just randomly calling people without wanting anything or needing them for anything, but just random check-in. So I have made a point of that, but texting is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
That's a great thing, and I don't want to make this too longer, but I think we spend a lot of time. We only contact people when we need something nowadays, even our family. So just checking in, that's
to the point where people are startled by it. They think something's wrong. They're like, I'm waiting for you to drop.
Okay, what you need, bro?
Are you okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah,
that's good. Favorite day of the week?
Favorite day of the week? Friday.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Okay. Nickname your folks back at the crib, or your parents, or whoever used to call you?
Growing up, it was Smooth.
Okay. Scale of 1 to 10, you might have gave yourself away with this. How good of a driver are you?
Driver?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Oh, man. I would say, hard to say. I've not driven a car in over 10 years since I lived in New York City, but I'm still going to say 10, though.
Oh. Now that car that doesn't have a transmission anymore. he probably would say different. Place that you travel that you enjoy the most, and place that you want to travel to.
Wow, great question. Living in New York, I think traveling back to Detroit, I would say, is always great. Outside of that, I do want to go to Africa. I've not been to Africa yet, so that's on the list.
Love it. Favorite junk food?
Favorite junk food? Probably anything flaming hot. They have a variety. Flaming hot, Fritos, Funyuns, all the things.
I see, again, I work in development, and I really profile kids that like height stuff. Those are the kids I got to tell them, hey, man, you got to get back in line.
It's more I try not to have it too often, but yeah, that's the go-to.
I love it. Favorite childhood TV show?
Childhood TV show, man. Probably American Gladiators. You remember that?
Oh, I do. I love it. That's a good one. That's a real good one. All right, 2 more. One of them EJ's favorite. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Yes, sir. And then
EJ shaking his head. So wrong answer.
No, it's okay, because we know the Android produces all the equipment for your phones anyway. So the screen,
there we
the
go.
and everything. So
Okay.
Yep. That's usually the answer there. All right. And then last Halloween costume, or if you participate, that you dressed in. What was your last one?
Ooh, it's a good one. It was as a kid. I think it was a Ninja Turtle.
Which one?
I think it was Leonardo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're the leader. That makes
yeah.
sense. You the team captain. Yeah, you're the captain. Not the leader.
all right, I'm gonna throw one in there, man. Give me your Detroit rappers top 5.
Just Detroit rappers only.
Yeah.
Royce the 5'9", Eminem, Big Sean. Man, this is hard. You're gonna get me in trouble. Let's say Cash Doll.
Okay.
Just throw them in. And then ooh.
Little T Grizzly in there.
Yeah, let's go T Grizzly.
I love it. All right, so jumping into the winner's circle, man. This is where we really just talk about what you got going on, or something you want to promote, so the fans can support and listen and just kind of learn more. And with this, when we talk offline or just kind of show prep, you just want to talk about some of the things that the NBA has going on, which is great because it gives us a little perspective in that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, selfishly, myself and MH want to talk about expansion.
Oh, okay.
It was announced, commissioner announced that, the steps are moving forward for 2 expansion teams. Yeah. And luckily Vegas was one of those to be, I guess, announced in that kind of category. What is some of the things that go into that, right? Like, and why now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first I would say, officially it's, the board voted to explore expanding into Vegas and Seattle. And so I think right now what's happening, and I think Adam said this publicly, is we want to see, what the interest is out there and kind of solicit interest in those 2 cities. It's 2 cities that we have history with, right? Obviously Seattle having a team years ago, obviously having the W team that's been really successful. So that's definitely a market that we see having a ton of potential. And then I think Vegas has become, such a home base for us. You think about 20 years of summer league. Sometimes it feels like they already have a team, just given how much time I spend there. And then obviously you think about the Aces being such a great team. And then just there seems to be, a really passionate hunger for sports in that market. So it seems, like 2 great markets. And so now it was just depending on, what type of interest that we see from bidders, and then taking that back to the board to see if it's something they want to do, right? Because obviously it's giving 2 people equity into this league, and so you have to kind of weigh, what's the right price to get them comfortable enough to want to do that, right? So, I think we all are optimistic that it's heading in that direction and excited about it, but I think the market will tell us, kind of what the value is and if it makes sense. I think to your point about why, I think just the opportunity of those 2 cities just presents a ton of value in what they represent. You think about Seattle and having another team in that Northwest, creating that rivalry with Portland, and just all of the economic opportunity that's happening in Seattle. And then obviously Vegas, I think it speaks for itself in terms of just the sports fandom there, the opportunity. It seems like every team that's come there so far has been successful. When you look at the Vegas Knights and you look at the Aces, and now, obviously the Raiders, and then you have the baseball team coming, right? So it just seems like, the sports, the entertainment capital of the world, right? So those 2 make sense for us. So we'll see what the market decides.
And I know you're real particular, and Adam was real particular about the words, but you do your homework, so you don't make a move without having, background and data and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But is there an instance to where one team could move forward and not both, or no teams move forward? Like, kind of give us a little snippet about that.
Yeah, I think absolutely it's possible, right? I think if you go to market and you don't feel like you have the bids that make sense, you could absolutely move forward with one and maybe not another, or not move forward at all. I don't think it's something where, we feel there's an absolute necessity to add 2 teams, right? I think it makes sense if it comes back and it really makes sense. And obviously there's a vote that needs to happen. And I think, everything that I've heard from how the owners feel, it's like, yeah, let's pursue it. Let's explore it. Let's definitely, it's not necessarily a money thing, but it's more of like, man, like we are very excited about the potential of this league. And, if we grow it and add more, like that's great if it makes sense.
So one of the other things is, in one of your interviews, as we prep for this, you said one of the biggest part of your roles is helping team grow the fan base, right? And so if we're looking at, like, let's say, wave the magic wand, the votes happen, everything's aligned where we have the 2 teams. Mm-hmm. You're looking at 2 different situations, right? The tale of 2 cities.
Yeah.
Where a fan base is kind of waiting and been craving for the comeback for Seattle, to where even though like you said, we've been heavy in basketball here in Vegas with the in-season, in-season tournament, all the things that we've historically from the UNLV TARC and Summer League, Aces, you go on and on. What is the strategy like around building those 2 tale of 2 cities and helping grow those fan bases?
Yeah, I think you can see it a little bit in action now in the W. If you look at, Golden State with the Valkyries last year, obviously this year we're launching 2 new teams, one in Portland, one in Toronto. And I think the work has been done. It starts with like hiring great people. I think each of those franchises started by like hiring great leaders, right? We support them in a variety of ways of like giving them a playbook based on like everything that we've seen of like, here's the best way to launch a team and like really introduce yourself to a market, ingrain yourself in community, really connect with the business community, identify like the key stakeholders in that community to really build the right, kind of alliance of the right people, right? And then from there, start to kind of staff up and build out products and build out all of the things that help make the business successful. But I think, all of the W teams that have launched here recently, they've all kind of followed that similar formula of starting with the people, then really connecting to the community, and then building a brand, which is probably the hardest part of like building a new brand from scratch. Going into like what the team name and all those things, the colors and those things, right? That probably takes the most work and really you want to make sure you get that part right. But in terms of this, like operating the business, like we feel very confident in our ability to be operators and we can put a team somewhere and really give them the tools of like, here's how you build out your ticketing strategy, your partnership strategy, marketing, premium, all the things. But you really got to get the people part right. And you really have to like make sure you're investing in the community, because if the community doesn't connect to it, it's hard to be successful in a market.
Outsiders looking in, I know the talk around sometimes the NBA is stars drive the league, and obviously the stars will probably help drive some of the marketing and the business with the team. Is how important from your perspective is a star in a market?
Yeah, it's helpful, right? It helps in winning, right? But I think you can only. I think basketball is such a unique sport in terms of like our players are probably the most visible, right, of all the sports, right? And so I think you have to kind of build, but I think you look at like the draft, we have a really exciting draft coming up, right? And hopefully there will be some star players there. But I think people like to kind of fall behind whatever the story is, right? Like I tell people all the time, like you're either selling championships and there may be 2 to 3 teams at any given year that's like realistically selling championships, right? But then everyone else is selling hope of some sort, right? And you have to figure out like what's that hope for you, right? That hope could be in future cap space that you got to get a free agent next year. It could be a new front office or new coach that's going to come in. It could be, this upcoming rookie that you got that's going to really grow and become a star. It could be, a generational star that you have, right? So you have to kind of like identify like what's your kind of story and what's your narrative, like there's only so many like superstars that actually like really move the needle. You know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we throw the word star around like a bit too casual. Like I would say there may be like 6 that are like, really box office, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's like a lot of below that, like a tier below that are like popular and people want to see them. But they're not like your entire, like I remember working for the Pistons and Kobe would come to town and like I would pay my rent with that, selling tickets for that game. You know what I mean? There's only so many of those, right? But, I think whatever you can kind of find your story to be, you mentioned the Pistons, right? Like there's a story about the brand of that team and, it's different. You look at Dallas, right? There's the hope of this rookie of the year that like is really going to grow into something, right? You have, I can go down the line and like tell you kind of what the story would be. And sometimes it's a star player but sometimes it's something else.
So you talk about stars, and we're talking the MH question is more stars on the court. The NBA has a great thing called NBA Future Stars, which is a program, but it's more focused on the business side.
Yeah.
Like, give me the genesis of that, because that's relevantly like within the last 3 to 5 years that's kind of built up. And tell us a little bit about that and like how our listeners can or should get involved or just know about the program.
Yeah, it's a baby of mine, so I appreciate you asking. This happened back in like 2021. During COVID was, a lot going on, but it was also kind of this, real focus on just looking at the industry and realizing that there's not a lot of people that look like me in revenue driving roles, right? And so when I would talk to teams, I would try to figure out like what's going on with your hiring practices, right? And some of the answers I would get back, it's like, oh, well, like, no one applies. Like we need more diverse candidates to apply for our jobs, and then we could hire more. And I just didn't feel like it was a accurate answer, right? And so instead of just kind of like complaining about it, I figured like, how can I like help like solve it, or at least start to like make progress in solving it. And so I thought like, what if we created a program that identified, college students, recent graduates that have an interest in revenue driving roles? What if we like could get them early, give them all of the tools, give them all of the information, the access to understand, what it takes to like be successful in this business? What if we could create kind of a really vetted pool of talent that teams could come to and say, man, when we have open roles, I can go to this pool of talent that I know has been vetted, I know that has been developed and nurtured, and then we can help them increase the numbers. So that was kind of the genesis of it. And then on the flip side of it, I would talk to college students, and a lot of them, they wouldn't have an interest in being in revenue because they would be afraid of sales. And they would have these kind of myths about sales. And some of it I learned would be given to them from some of their professors and some of their academic advisors who maybe used to work in the business like 20 years ago when it was, maybe a different way, right? And so they're giving them kind of misinformation that's making them not even consider it. So the other part of the program is like, man, let's expose them to how it really is today so that they can see for themselves if it's a fit for them, instead of hearing it from someone who used to work in the business years ago, but it's been in academia for a long time, that's kind of out of touch with how things are today. So that was kind of the genesis, right? So it's essentially a virtual development program at this point. And every year we have a cohort of about 30 to 50 that we work with, and we meet with them twice a month. And each session is split into 2. And so the first half of it is it's like a sales development. So they're getting real world training in ticket sales and partnership sales from leaders across the league, like the actual training that people that work for teams are getting. They're getting that. And then the second half of each session, it's my favorite part, is more professional development. So we give them like all of the tools around the interview process. We'll have like people from HR at our teams come on and say like, here are the questions that I ask candidates that they always stumble on, or like, here's the type of follow-up that I wish more candidates would do. Like we give them like all of these tools that maybe you had to learn by like failing and experience it and learning from it. Like we try to like give them all the information up front so that they can kind of hit the ground running and not only get opportunities, but then thrive when they get into those roles. And so we have like candid conversations. Like last week we had a session and I brought on some women executives to talk through like just what should you wear? Like, cause it's not something I can't like help women with what they should wear. Like, how should you conduct yourself at a networking event? Or if you're at an event and people are drinking, like what should you do? Right. So like giving them kind of these real world scenarios that sometimes you learn by mistakes. So hopefully they don't make the mistakes that we made along the way. So that's the program. We're on our 4th cohort now. We have I would say over 40 people that have been hired by NBA teams. The cool part now is seeing them like be some of the top of the people on the sales board at teams. We're starting to see alum get promoted into management roles now. So it's been really cool to see. And it just goes to show like we're out here. Like it's not hard to find, great candidates that are diverse. You just have to be a little intentional. But they're some of the best rock stars in our business. So I'm excited about it.
Man, well, kudos and congratulations.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Appreciate it.
No, to have that and grow that. And I got an idea we can pitch to your 5th cohort. Maybe they need to review what happened to the Magic City Hawks proposal.
Yeah, we talked about it. It came up. That was, obviously that was a hot topic when that came out. And yeah, everybody wanted some info on that. Some good lessons were learned there for sure.
Absolutely, because Vegas may need it. We have a couple of those around here, so I don't know if we can figure out the game plan and the blueprint to get that going.
I've seen some of the merch on the street, so somehow there's some of the hottest merch on the underground. I feel like
there it is, man. Okay, man, moving forward though. The last thing I want to talk to, and then Mitch, if you have anything else, but what struck me is the HBCU push that's happened around All-Star Weekend. Mm-hmm. Really, truly love that. And I mean, and it's not just something that's thrown. Like I've actually seen the commissioner at the games speaking mm-hmm. or walking around and spending time. And if you haven't gone and those have gone, understand that All-Star Weekend is busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm pretty sure it's a chance for you all to meet and build some other objectives that are going on. And for that to be happening and him to spend time there, like that just shows how important that is. How did that come about? And as you, as an HBC alum, how do you guys support that or want to see that vision grow?
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It started back in 2020. We launched the NBA Foundation with the goal of, every team kind of contributing $30 million. I'm sorry, the entire $1 million each over 10 years. So with the goal to create programming that kind of brings more economic equity to more diverse and underrepresented groups. And so we have a bunch of tentpole programs that the foundation runs. We have an HBCU fellowship where 70 fellows will work with NBA teams this summer across the business. The HBCU game has been something that we've done every year where 2 HBCU schools get to play during All-Star Weekend. That's something that we're going to continue. We do a pitch competition where Black entrepreneurs and underrepresented entrepreneurs get to compete for massive prize money to kind of help amplify their business. And so I think it's been a commitment to kind of understanding one of the missions, kind of our company mission is to, connect and inspire people everywhere through the power of the game of basketball. And so I think, leadership has been really committed to investing in programs that help us kind of use the game to make a big impact in people's lives. And I think HBCUs do that every day. And so the more that we can provide them with resources, exposure, and our platform to elevate them, I think the better. And so for me, it's something that I'm always going to champion and always be willing to be a part of and support.
And that's amazing. Want to get to the assists, right? So as putting on your point guard status, man.
Okay.
This we ask for a coaching gem or just something that you can share with our listeners. It could be a quote that you live by, or maybe something that you would tell your younger self. So go ahead and give us the assist.
It's a great one. I'll give you a little glimpse of my commencement speech that I'm going to give on Saturday. I tell them that there's a question that I had to ask myself, over and over again along my career. And it was, does my work ethic match my ambition? Or to say it another way, does my grind match my dreams, right? And so always kind of understanding, like, it's great to have dreams. It's great to, like, have big and bold ideas, but you also have to be willing to kind of put the work in to reach them. And then I think one of my favorite quotes comes from Nipsey Hussle. It said, the highest human act is to inspire, right? So, like, think about, like, what a challenge that is, not just to think about how you can be successful, but how you can inspire others. Like, not just for you to win, but how can you help other people see that they can win, right? And so I think the more that you chase kind of being of service to others, the more success will find you.
That's beautiful. Let's go.
My granddad used to tell me that the same way. He said it in some other words, but the message is the same. No, I think as men, we have to do that. We have to lead and grow others and inspire others. That's part of being a man. So I really appreciate that, Mike, man. That is awesome, and really appreciate you hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. And I have to say, man, I've watched a bunch of your episodes, and I love what you guys do. Thank you for just what you guys provide and elevating, telling stories, and showcasing, people doing great things in sports, man. I really appreciate what you guys do.
And we're all part of the journey, man. So thank you so much. MH, any other thing before we get out of here, your final thoughts?
No, this has just been outstanding, especially during the NBA playoffs now. I think I saw a score that's going to make me pretty happy. So
you guys got some favorite? What's your predictions? Finals?
Yeah. Orange and blue skies.
Okay.
And I think the Timberwolves are really, really good too. It's interesting because they had a trade a few years ago, but I think those are the two teams.
EJ, what about you?
Yeah, definitely following Timberwolves. Shout out to Conley, man. He knows how to build and engineer teams, man. So he's definitely the homie. So good luck to them.
I have to say, living in New York, it's fun living in New York when the Knicks are good. Like, it's the city is just out of control, man.
Love it. Best city in the world. Well, again, man, just flowers to you and all you do. However we can be a platform to continue to push the message, support things, that's what we want to be here for. And it's highlighting, showing people, we definitely have fun here, but we want people to learn that there's so many opportunities to be, at levels and kind of seek greatness. So once again, thank you so much, man. And like we always say, man, we drop a new episode every Thursday. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There was a lot of points dropped, so from our scoring leader. So I hope you picked up some of the points that were dropped. And just please follow us on YouTube, because as we say, visual representation matters just as much. And like we always say, getting out of here, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know that we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap.